Good morning. This is Scott Craig, Public Policy Advisor for KLMP, with your weekly legislative update from the South Dakota Capitol in Pierre. As always, I am joined by Dale Barcher, the Executive Director of the Family Heritage Alliance, and he sure is going to sound a lot healthier than I am. Dale, tell us, what is the update over the past week?
Good morning, Scott. Well, we would be amiss if we did not mention the message brought this week by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Capitol Hill. As many of you know, he received a thunderous applause upon his arrival and delivered what may be one of the most important speeches in modern times. For the first time in more than 6 years, a leader standing before a joint session of Congress spoke with clarity about the threats in the Middle East and beyond. Let us continue to pray for the peace and the strength of Israel. We are down to our final week and a half of the South Dakota's 90th legislative session. We are pleased that SB 198 passed on the floor of the Senate this past week. This bill will provide a tax credit to insurance companies that contribute to an organization providing educational scholarships to non-public school students who qualify. In addition, it will offer grants to public schools and non-public school teachers and homeschool parents for instructional supplies. So this bill, SB 189, will be in front of the House Taxation Committee today, and we hope for a favorable outcome. Also last week, we saw SB 57 unfortunately pass on the floor of the House. This is a bill that will add 3 games of Keno, craps, and roulette to the gaming establishments in Deadwood and on the reservation, thereby expanding gambling in the great state of South Dakota. We are supporting SB 177, which would set the minimum wage at $7.50 for employees under 18 years of age and would not be subject to a yearly increase as seen in the recent ballot initiative voted on last November. This bill will help ensure that our young people have ample opportunities to enter the workforce and gain experience. SB 177 is on its way to the governor's desk. The Senate Education Committee unfortunately killed House Bill 1195, an act to void the transgender policy of the South Dakota High School Activities Association. We are now negotiating the possibility of smoking this bill out onto the floor for a vote. We'll see what happens soon. The Senate Education Committee will hear HB 1161 this morning. This bill simply says that the South Dakota High School Activities Association should not have the authority to make policy regarding sexual identity of students other than basic male and female distinctions. We are in full support of HB 1161. We are pleased that House Bill 1073 is on its way to the governor for his possible signature. This is an act to require that registered sex offenders report ownership of a new vehicle or license plate within 3 days. This act will allow law enforcement to better monitor these offenders. And finally, Senate Bill 168, which asks for the state of South Dakota to set up a task force to study the issue and the prevalence of the abuse of our elderly citizens, is on its way to the governor for his possible signature. I want to remind our listeners this morning to go to www.fhaaction.org, that's fhaaction.org, and click on Legislative Radar to stay informed on the progress of these bills that affect faith, family, and freedom. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Dale. Folks, join us this time next week for the final legislative update from the South Dakota Capitol in Pierre. For KLMP, this is Scott Craig, Public Policy Advisor.